Welcome to Breaking Sales, a podcast dedicated to helping you have tough, meaningful, and rewarding conversations with your prospects and clients. In meaningful, what we mean is these are the conversations you truly feel like you are the prospect or client's conversational peer. There's no anxiousness or uncertainty holding you back. You feel a sense of calm and confidence in asking the tough questions. You're not thrown off by the bad news, and you expect the prospect to think about and invest into the conversation as much as you do. On Breaking Sales, we use the filter of psychology and innate human behavior to deconstruct the many misleading sales approaches that actually work against your efforts to build trust and close the business. Let's get started. Welcome back to Breaking Sales, and thanks for making us a part of your high-performance journey. Today, my guest is Ayelet Fishbach, a motivation scientist at the University of Chicago and the author of the book Get It Done: Surprising Lessons from the Science of Motivation. My biggest takeaway from my conversation with Ayelet is the surprising simplicity and power of cognitive reframe. When I reflect back on the 20 years of my experiences, the coaching, and the lessons learned, many of them, this has to be one of the most impactful and rewarding skills any sales professional could invest in and or strengthen. Think of the daily actions and processes that you don't enjoy and hold your performance back. It could be consistent prospect outreach, professional networking, asking meaningful questions, or simply just asking for the business. If you want to improve these skills, lower your stress and anxiety, and improve your performance, then it will start with cognitive reframe. For example, it's the thought process of moving from, hey, no one wants to talk to me, to, there are people out there that do need my help and do need to talk to me, and it's my responsibility to find them. Or another example, I hate the risk and rejection of getting no's. 2, the no's are always going to be a part of the process on my way to getting the yeses. Remember, your brain is hardwired to defer to what can go wrong versus what could go right. It impacts the introductions you make or you don't make, the questions you ask or you don't ask, and the simple choices that you make each day. Listen in as Ayelet talks through why the journey to achieving and creating feels the way it does, and how she provides some strategies for reframing setbacks and making better decisions along the way. Let's get started. Ayelet, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got to jump right into it. One of the things that was very intriguing about your work and your research is the psychology behind goals. I mean, we've been coaching for 20 years, and I don't know if there's a day or a week that goes by that we aren't talking to someone about goal setting and the struggles that they're having and all of that. And as I listened to your TED Talk and everything, and you went through the how motivation's high at the beginning, high at the end, but there's this big dip in the middle. I'm like, all right, that would be a perfect topic for us to start with today.
All right, let's do it. I agree. People have complicated relationships with their goals. We can unpack that.
Yeah, so if we could get into it a little bit, can you share a little bit more about this process of the motivation, how it's high at the beginning and it can be high at the end, but yet in that middle is where the struggle, really takes place?
So let me first position us so we understand where this question is. We think about motivation in terms of first people set a goal and then they need to monitor the progress. They need to get from here to there. By the way, they also need to think about this goal in the context of other goals, so managing multiple goals. They also need to think about this goal in the social context, who's helping, who is interfering. But we'll put this aside and just think about how we monitor progress. And we all agree that we need to monitor progress. If we don't know where we stand on the goal, it's very easy to lose our motivation. But we also intuitively agree that, like, when we start something, we are highly motivated. Okay, like the first step in the journey, and we are all like geared up. We thought about it. We assessed the evaluation. We are immediately ready to jump in and do the work. And that when we are about to finish something, we are also eager. Okay, we are excited to get it completed, to deliver the product, to get it off our plate. There is much energy. The problem is that for most goals, there is a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end. Most of it is in the middle. And in the middle is when it's hard to stay motivated. It's very easy to see any progress like a drop in the bucket. Okay. And so, my first step did 100% of the progress so far. My middle step feels like it didn't really move the needle. It's very easy to not quite see how my actions in the middle reflect on my identity, on who I am. It's an interesting effect. People don't actually remember what happens in the middle, but they also have the intuition that when I look at myself and think about how I perform, I'm not going to look at the middle and say, who cares? Okay, that doesn't tell me or the world about who I am as a person. And so we also relax our standards, even ethical standards, in the middle.
When I think about the middle, I think if I reflect on just the experiences that I have, it's always the unknowns, right? I mean, in the middle, you're not certain if your efforts are going to accomplish the goal. Is that fair?
Yes. Okay. And yeah.
Right. And so you're making these sacrifices, or you talked about in your TED Talk, you're embracing these discomforts, but you're still not sure if they're going to get you where you want to go.
Yes, although I would say that for many of the goals that we are pursuing, they are not the all or nothing. Okay, that is, even if we don't get to where we were planning to get, still the journey makes sense. Okay, we still get something out of it. So let me compare some goal like the completing an academic degree, where really you get nothing from an academic degree, to a sales goal or exercise goal, where you want to get to the end, and the middle can be hard, but really the more you do, the merrier.
There's a lot of individuals out there who talk about the process, and that's what you have to try to fall in love with. How do you feel about that philosophy where, right, people say you just have to fall in love with the process, and that's how you get to the goal?
Well, yes, intrinsic motivation matters. That is, you need to find satisfaction in the process. Okay, you need to be the one who wants to be doing it, and not just the one who wished they were already on the other side. Now, I hesitate a bit, because falling in love is a bit extreme. Usually, by the fact that you set a goal, I can tell that you are not that excited to do that. Okay, no one set a goal to watch more TV or eat more ice cream and fall in love. It's like, well, if I truly fell in love, I don't even need to set a goal. I just want to spend all my time in that thing, or with that person. When we talk about work, okay, whether it's our professional job or any other work, usually it's some combination of, I care about the outcome, I'm doing it for the outcome, okay, but I also get some value from the process. And what we find in our research is that the variance in how much people evaluate the process predicts performance much more than the variance in how much they value the outcome. And that works for any goal, okay, for professional goals, for health goals, for New Year's resolution goals.
So tell me a little about this one then. I'm going to give you an example, and I would really like to hear what your gut reaction is to it. So in sales, it's very common for most sales professionals to have a particular goal around what's called new meetings. These are new meetings that they have to set with potential buyers, potential decision makers. And, sometimes that might be a goal of 30 new meetings per year or 75 or 80 new meetings per year. The process, though, of that sales professional setting those meetings requires them to send emails to complete strangers and risking rejection from that stranger. That stranger might say, no, not interested in a meeting. It also requires the sales professional to pick up the phone and dial someone who they don't know and ask them for a meeting. And so even right there and then, they're immediately risking the rejection that person's going to say, not interested. Please don't call me again. That is a big goal or a big process for most salespeople where they will say, I've got to set 50 new meetings, and that's my goal this year. But the process is full of so much discomfort.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First is the number, okay? Putting a number on your goal. Well, I am sure your listeners already know that this is a useful strategy, okay? When I wrote a summary there, I basically wrote a book on the motivational strategies that are out there that people can use. I did mention putting a number, but I'm pretty sure that this is the one people already know, okay? So yes, you need a number. It needs to make sense, okay? If it is too ambitious, people are going to give up. If it's too unambitious, people are going to not try hard enough, because you can reach this number any day, okay, any month. Your second point was that this is an uncomfortable goal because I could be rejected. Well, now we can think about how people think, okay, how they frame in the mind these rejections, okay, these obstacles, this discomfort, okay. Is this something that suggests that you are making progress? Is this part of the goal? Can you say, unless I experience rejections, I'm not really doing my job? Okay? If everyone I ever approached said yes to me, well, I am not approaching enough. Okay, what should be the ratio of rejections that will make me feel like I'm doing my job? Okay, I'm going beyond my my comfort zone. So we can think about comfort zone as another goal. Okay, you should be uncomfortable. Okay, it's very intuitive with exercising. If you don't sweat, well, you're not really doing it. Okay, if you're not getting rejections when you approach strangers, well, I don't think that you're really approaching strangers.
So what you're saying there is, I think, reframe it a little bit. Try to embrace that discomfort of rejection, because as you get the rejection, that is a signal that you're doing it. That is a signal that you're in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? 2 weeks ago, I taught negotiations in our program here at the University of Chicago, and I had this conversation with my students about hearing no. And basically, this insight that people have when they realize that if you always got what you asked for, you are clearly not asking for enough. Man, you know, cognitively you understand that, right? Like if I always gave you everything that you asked for, you're asking for too little, you know that. But in the moment when I say no, you need to train yourself to understanding, okay, well, now I know where the line is. Okay, now I know that I asked for too much. Yeah. For most of us, approaching strangers is not going to be the most pleasant and fun thing to do. We are all, even the extroverts of us, are a bit shy. Okay? Well, this discomfort is a sign that you are developing, that you are growing, that you are testing the limits of something. Let's just reframe it as such, as opposed to a failure.
You know, when you say that, I look on my own experience and I think about, all right, when I test my limits and I make a mistake or I might get some kind of short-term failure, there is still a sense of fulfillment I get from that. Is that common, or does that depend on maybe what we're doing, the goal that we have, or the actions that we're taking? So is that common for us as human beings to get some kind of fulfillment when we do have short-term failure or when we do make a mistake and learn from it?
Well, we need to learn that. We need to train ourselves, and definitely in our studies, people are not learning enough from setbacks and failures. Okay, yeah. To give you the simplest example of that, we have people guess the answer to something that they don't know. If they guessed correctly, 5 minutes later, they know the answer. If they guessed incorrectly, 5 minutes later, they don't know the answer. They don't even know what they have guessed. Okay, they suppress the whole thing. And so definitely we see that people are just brushing off these experiences that are unpleasant, so they don't learn anything. And we also see in research that sometimes people learn that they are helpless. So we call it learn because they did infer something, but it's the wrong lesson. Okay, what they have learned is they cannot do this. What we hope people learn from setbacks and failures and that kind of negative feedback that life is giving us very frequently is what to do. Okay, if this approach did not work, then I can cross it off. Okay, if this person does not work, then I can think about who is the person that might be more receptive for my message. What have I learned from that? This is not intuitive for people. Obviously, you can do it, but you also have better skills and more training, and the rest of us have much to learn.
Is there a way for someone to improve that process of having an experience, even if it's negative, and being able to shift to learning from it versus hiding from it or removing it or ignoring it?
Yes, yes. Actually, let me offer a couple. Okay. One we already touched, which is reframing this experience as a sign that something good is happening. Okay, that you are growing, that you are developing, that you are that this is the good kind of sweat. I, congratulations, you got a rejection, which means you approached someone that had the potential of turning you down. So we basically take this experience and say, think about it as good. Okay, this negative experience, that's a good sign. And in our research, we had people read the opinions of people they disagree with. If you're uncomfortable, that's a sign that you are growing. Okay? We had people learning improvisation, which is unpleasant if you are a novice. Okay? And we again taught them that if you feel embarrassed and uncomfortable and you don't know what to do with your body, that's a sign that you are growing. So this is one way. And even
I like that.
yeah, so put it on the list, but let me suggest another way that is really, really simple. When you have this experience, think about what kind of advice would you give another person based on this experience. we found the people that were giving advice were more motivated by the advice that they were giving than by the advice that the expert gave them. Now, what's going on there? Okay, and this was in in like people that were struggling with their finance, with getting a job, with being healthy, okay, with their academics, across every domain. When people were struggling and then giving advice, they were motivated by their advice. What this exercise did is basically forcing learning. Okay, I don't allow you to say, I'm just not good at it. I ask you to give advice to another person, and so you have to think about what you have learned, and it's really the simplest way that I found to encourage learning.
So if I use that, I really like that. But if I use it in the example that I gave, right? So there's a sales professional and they just spent 2 hours on a phone trying to reach strangers, decision makers though, and they got a hold of nobody. Well, they got a hold of one person. And the one person said, no, not interested. The idea here would be that they would take the step back and they would give themselves advice as if they were giving someone else advice in that same situation.
Yes. Ask, what's the advice that you are going to give someone who has to make these goals?
Same situation, same experience. What advice would you give them? And what you're saying is, that's a good way to, is that like how we can ground ourselves and sometimes remind ourselves in the moment that this is not a negative, this is actually a positive?
Well, it reminds us that we have learned that there is something like these last couple of hours of consistently getting no one or getting rejection, something good happened there. There was some learning. Okay, I developed, and to get into the experience of this. Okay, when like we asked people that were struggling with their weight. Okay, what advice can you give someone who would like to lose weight? And the first reaction that you usually get is, why would you ask me? I obviously am not very good at it. Okay? But you're laughing because I'm thinking, well, you are not good at it. Like someone who's just naturally thin, they are not good at it. Okay, what do
That's
they
true.
know? Right?
That's so true.
Exactly. So, like the salesperson that was like getting rejections over the last 2 hours knows so much about how to dealing with rejections more than someone who never made a sales call.
That's right.
Let's remind ourselves that we might be the experts of dealing with rejections. We certainly learned something.
That's really interesting. You're right. Just out of curiosity, when you had these individuals who were overweight and you asked them and their first response is, why are you asking me? Was there another response after that? Did they actually start to connect and give advice?
Yes. Okay. So this is often the opening line, but given that you ask me, let me tell you.
Okay. And yeah.
Yeah, we as unemployed people, how do you find a job? Same thing. Okay, often they start their essay by saying, why would you ask me? I'm unemployed. But given that you ask me, here's how I think one could do that.
And then just out of curiosity, on the advice that they would give, would you and your team find it was actually pretty accurate, or was it pretty good advice? Or
well, if you compare it to the world experts' advice, it's not as good. Okay, it's also just that these are people talking. Okay, it's often not as edited, and that they might make spelling mistakes or not use the best grammar, but it is very good for them, and it is often insightful. Like we would very frequently identify the principles of motivation science there and say, wow, people are impressive. Motivation, knowledge is real, and people that have it will do better.
So you mentioned a word just now that is very intriguing. Motivation. I'm going to ask your opinion. Are we born with it? Are there just some people who are just more motivated than others? Is it something that we can learn?
The latter. Well, no, maybe we are born with it, but it doesn't matter. Okay. That is unlike some other things that we are born with. Okay. Like if you have the genes to be tall, you have a much better chance to be successful in basketball than if you have the genes of a short person. Okay. For motivation, not really. I believe that as a field, we may have misled people to strongly believe in willpower and in something that you either have or not. As a field, we've been talking about the marshmallow test and like taking young children and putting them in front of a marshmallow and say, don't eat this marshmallow. If you can wait, you'll get 2 marshmallows. Back in the 80s, Walter Mischel and his team found that those that were waiting longer were doing better in life. So we really, as a field, taught people that you need to have this person with a willpower. As it turned out, and we've known this now for almost 10 years, that the correlations are really, really small, and they are totally driven by knowledge. That is, it's not how long people can wait, is whether they think that they should wait in the first place. Okay, whether they have the strategies to wait. So maybe willpower is something, but knowledge is so much more.
So how, if you don't mind, how does knowledge affect willpower / motivation?
So you need to know how to motivate yourself, and you need to have 2 types of knowledge. You need to know yourself. Okay, you need to know what.
That's not the easiest thing for most of us.
Not at all. Okay, not only it's not easy, we change, right? The person I was 5 years ago is not the person I am today. So at no point you can say, okay, I figured myself out. So yeah, it's like a moving target, and you're constantly trying to learn, like, this person who's you, like, what are their skills, and what do they want to achieve in life, and what are the priorities right now. So lots of being learned about yourself and your goals and where you want to go, and then just what are the strategies, what's on the menu. Okay, what can I use? I really don't believe in like one strategy fits it all. It's a bit like, I go back to the metaphor of exercising, but it's like saying this is the workout that everybody should do. Of course not.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Sales. If you're enjoying this episode, you might also be interested in episode 140, The Real Prospecting Silver Bullet. Would it be correct? I hate using that word correct. I don't have a better word right now, though, where there could be some things that we are intrinsically more motivated for, obviously, than other things. Some things are going to speak to us more, and we might be more self-aware. We might have more knowledge on it, so we have more willpower on it versus other things.
Yes, right. And at work, we constantly figure it out. Okay, there are things that are exciting for me. Okay, it's easy to get up in the morning and do this. Okay, there are things that are daunting, and I will stay in bed a bit because I am not ready to face my day. And not only I'm different than you, I'm also different than the person I used to be. And so you need to know what are your obstacles. Okay, what are the barriers for you, and then address them.
So going back to the example that I started with, right? You have this sales professional, and one of their goals is to set 50 new meetings with new decision makers over a 1-year period. and we've talked about that already. It's not an exciting activity. It's not something that most sales professionals embrace because of the risk and the rejection that goes along with it. And then we've talked a bit about reframe that. It's learning. You're getting better. Look at the positives. You're actually making the calls. You are moving. So we've talked about that. In order to get through all that, though, from a motivation standpoint, is it that the sales professional needs to be very clear on what's at the end of that journey for them? Like, what does that create for them? Is that knowledge? Is that like an example of knowledge?
Well, see, this is knowledge about the goal. Okay, it's let's say 50. Okay, or whatever is the number that you put in it, and also knowledge maybe on how to monitor progress on why you do this, but the knowledge can also be on the level of how to set this number, how to make this process more fun for me. Is it better in one location versus another? Is it better if I talk to someone or not? Even, as you were talking through this example, we can set our goals in terms of approach or avoidance. So am I approaching social connection or avoiding social rejection? As it turned out, approach goals are more motivating. Okay? They are more fun to pursue. People are more excited about it. There is more negative emotions with approach than avoidance goals. So if you think about any form of social connection in terms of approach, you will likely be more motivated than if you think about this in terms of avoiding rejection.
I think that's really interesting. I've not heard of that before. So it's a reframe.
Yes. And for almost everything, this framing in terms of approach or avoidance is very, very easy. It's a low-hanging fruit in motivation. Okay, it's do you do your job because you want to be successful, or because you don't want to fail? Okay, because you want to be promoted, or because you don't want to lose the promotion? It's the same thing. You just shift the way you think about this. By the way, people in the position of power, or when people experience power, it's easier to think in terms of approach. Okay, it's more intuitive. When people feel lack of power, they are shifting toward avoidance. So, one way to change the framing of the goal is by reminding yourself that you're talented, that you have power over your life, and that often will make it more intuitive to think about approach.
Have you and your team done any study or work on the self-talk component?
So this is more Ethan Cross's work. Okay, he looks at abstraction and basically refer to you as a third party. Okay, so it's me saying, Ayelet, what happened? Ayelet, how do you analyze it, as opposed to what happened to me? Okay, and how I analyze it, with the finding that more distancing, more abstractness allows for some detachment and let's understand what I have learned. So it's definitely on my list of strategies to deal with the difficult part of the job. Although, frankly, for me, personally, I believe in just changing their relationship with difficulties.
Well, I think there's a lot here that's been really cool. Because this is, like I told you, there could be 15 million or so sales professionals in this country alone, right? And they all have to, in some way, shape, or form, make phone calls and make introductions and try to build relationships with, in essence, at some point, complete strangers. And so there's always that risk and rejection that comes into play. But what I really enjoyed is that it's how you look at it, it's how you frame it, right? It's really a lot about how you're going to frame that experience. The approach versus the avoidance was very cool. But I also liked the approach of embracing the discomfort, because you knowing that every time you're uncomfortable, you're moving, you're getting better, you're making progress. I thought that was very interesting too. And that last part, I have heard that before, but it was really good to hear from you, is the power of distancing yourself from the rejection, or distancing yourself from that negative feeling by talking to yourself more in the third party. So it becomes more of a learning process versus a failure process, or I'm a failure, I didn't get this right.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you summarizing this and thinking in the sales context, because I'd say if you're making sales calls, rejections are the most expected thing in the world, right? Like you should not be surprised. You should not be shocked. And somehow what we found in our study is that even those setbacks are often the most expected part of the process. When they happen, people are at loss. Okay, like how did this happen to me? And I do find myself in conversation asking, "What do you mean? How this happened to you? Like, didn't you know it's going to happen? Like, isn't this part of everybody's process?" And still, what happens is, because cognitively, when we do something, we do this in order to succeed. When we fail, it's always unexpected. Okay, somehow even the most expected setback is never expected.
That is so very true. It kind of reminds me of an individual I had on a few weeks back, Dr. Annie Dukes. She talks about this concept of playing poker, where if a poker player wins and they leave the table and you ask them why they won, they're going to say, "I played my hands really well. I managed my risk really, really well. I knew when the fold, I didn't get attached. I stayed objective." They're going to take all the credit for it. But if they lose and they leave the table, they will say something different. They will say, "I didn't get the cards. I didn't have any luck."
Yeah, this is a healthy self-protection mechanism there, right? Like when I do well, I take the credit. When I don't do well, I assign the blame to the situation, to other people, not to ourselves. You know, that's fine.
But it does impact our learning, right? Because then we're not really learning.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, the worst is learn that you are helpless. Okay? Is learning the wrong lesson. Like I think about it in terms of levels. Okay, we often don't learn from setbacks. Okay, it's not as bad as learn that you're unable. But hey, there was a lesson, and you kind of missed it out because you were too busy protecting your ego.
Have you done some work on how, I think you have, right? Where how we make decisions?
That's a very large topic. So yeah, I studied decision making.
Yeah. Because I mean, again, right? If I go to sales, a sales professional is in front of an individual who is quote unquote responsible for decision making. Could you share a little bit maybe with our listeners about what some of your research and studies have found regarding how human beings make decisions?
Oh, it's a very big topic. So I'm trying to think about how now that how to bring this down to earth. If I make it, we make decisions that all the time. There is a whole like field of decision making and the kind of biases and the right approach to make decisions. My research as a motivation scientist is often on how our decision making is in service of our goals, okay, and how whatever it is, and talking about goals very broadly defined as life goals, okay, like health goals, professional goals, relationship goals, and how these affect what we see around us and how we decide between options. So I often look at another person's decisions and they don't make sense to me. And this is because they have different goals and different motivations. Okay. And so much of what I study when I study decision making is around how goals influence this process. And it's a bit abstract, but hopefully it made sense. If not, they can become more concrete.
How much does loss aversion feed into our decision process?
Yeah, so it's part of what makes us often not take risks when we should. Now, clearly, we should not risk our lives, as much as we can avoid it. But small risks make sense, right? And so now let's stay with approaching someone who might reject me in terms of the decision making analysis. If this person rejects you, you lost very little, right? You are basically where you were if you have never approached them. Okay, you had a bit of unpleasantness, but financially, you did not lose anything.
You didn't lose anything. You're right where you were originally.
Yeah, right. Whereas if this works out, there is much to gain, but because of loss aversion, the small unpleasantness of rejection might loom large. Okay, as opposed to the actual financial gain, and so loss aversion often prevents us from trying out things, okay, from testing where they are. If we go back to my negotiation example, we should ask for more, right? Like if we get it, great. If we don't get it, we are in the same situation. But our psychology is such that if we hear no, oh, that's going to be really hard for me. Okay, maybe even more impactful than if I hear yes. Okay, and so now something that, in terms of decision analysis, had zero risk, just ask for more, either you get it or not, okay, becomes risky in our mind. If I get rejected, I would feel awful.
What I'm picking up here as a theme is you are really good at this reframing. I mean, you gave another great reframe, which is if I play the game out and I try to win the business or make the sale and I don't win, I'm still the same as when I started. I'm not any worse. I'm not any better.
Okay, so you just identified one of there are two tools for behavioral scientists, and I'm a behavioral scientist. One is changing the situation. The other one is change the way you think about the situation. Reframing is change the way you think about the situation. Think about failure as growth. Okay, you mentioned like monitoring progress that we have done versus progress that we still need to do. Okay, with the middle problem. This is framing. Okay, look at what you did that is successful, or look at what you have not yet done. Okay? These are all framing. So, you either change the situation or you change the way you think about the situation, because we respond to the situation. We respond to our representation of the situation. So, yeah, this underlies every behavioral intervention.
Is reframing something we can strengthen? Can we get better at it?
Oh, we learn that this goes back to learning. Yes, we get better at it. We get better with age, only because we have learned. Okay, because throughout life we keep learning. Okay, and so what would be completely devastating at a young age becomes just something that maybe ruin my afternoon.
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, even like this morning, I had a cup of coffee. I have 4 children. And this morning, I had a cup of coffee with one of them. And they're a little bit distraught because they're not where they want to be. And things aren't happening quick enough for them. Yet, when I look at them and where they are, they're doing really, really well for their age. They're ahead of the curve for their age, but they don't feel that way. And so my comment to them was, you just got to be patient. You'll see. This is going to play out. You're going to be fine. But as I'm saying that to them, I can tell from an eye contact and body language standpoint, they weren't buying into Dad's advice yet.
Yeah. There are things that you just need to practice, right? You just need to reframe and reframe and reframe until you learn. But that's where we started. Motivation is learning. You need to learn about yourself, and you need to learn about motivation. And I mean, you can listen to podcasts, you can read, you can do the research, and you will learn faster. Or you can just very slowly learn, just because you age and things happen.
So, question here to kind of wrap up this little topic here, actually a big topic. So for our listeners right now who might be struggling with a goal and just getting started, what advice would you give them?
Well, for the listeners who are struggling with a goal, actively think about what you are learning from your struggles. Okay, what is the lesson here? What advice would you give someone who is struggling with the same thing? You are not making progress on the goal, maybe, but you are making progress on other area, which is learning how to deal with struggles. So, what's the gain there? What are you learning there?
That's very good. That's another great reframe.
Thank you.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit about the book, Get It Done?
My favorite topic, get it done. So that goes to I've been doing motivation research for over 20 years before I finally sat down to write it in a book. And it was realizing that there is a method in the madness, okay? Yeah. That all motivation strategies fall into 4 buckets, okay? Well, they are all involved changing the situation or changing the framing, but the specific strategies, and we touched here a few, they fall into goal setting, like putting a number, okay, or making it more about the process. Goal progress, okay, then look back, look ahead, have a strategy for dealing with setbacks. Third bucket, multiple goals, how this thing that I'm doing fits with everything else. Okay, how to organize my goals. And then the fourth packet is the social support. Okay, who in my life is helping? How do I do it with other people? What's the role of us as a company, okay, as a family, as partners, and this type of strategies. And so once I had this framework in my head, I was like, okay, I have to write it down, and hence get it done.
On the social support, is that the communicating what you're trying to accomplish and why to a support team to those around you? Is that what it is, or is it something more, or is it?
It's definitely part of it, and we for many goals we are doing them with other people. Okay, and it could be, I know you said you have 4 children. Okay, this is, a family is a project for more than one person. Okay, usually there are two and more. And so a company is, many people working together, a society. Okay, like, so there are goals that we are doing with other people, and then we can think about strategies, how to prevent social loafing, how to make sure that we are happy with the division of labor, and so on. And then the other part is for our personal goals. Who is helping me? Who is supporting me? Who's my role model? Who am I thinking of when I do my work? Okay, maybe I support them. Maybe is for them. We are connected to other people, and so they could be around us, they could be in our mind, but even for like our like task at work, which could be an individual task, or our health, which could be on us. It's something that we do with others.
Ayelet, what would
Yes.
you say? What would you say to someone who is afraid to share their goals because they maybe are afraid to be on the hook? Because what if they don't accomplish them?
Yeah, I love this question because it's so interesting. Like, we are as humans so dependent on social support, and then sometimes we are concerned because if I tell you my goals and then I don't meet them, I have not only failed myself, I fail you. Okay, and so I don't actually see you as someone who supports me. I see you as someone who evaluates me, and someone whom I might disappoint. Having like an extra person to evaluate you beyond the people that already evaluate you, okay, like your bosses, your children, whoever, uh, that is not a great motivator. So I wouldn't recommend that. But you need to have a cheerleader. Okay. And so think about how can you turn someone to a cheerleader without making them a judge. Okay. And it also your job when you support them, because you describe this like heart to heart conversation with a child. I have 3. Okay. How do you have these conversations so that they understand that you are their biggest fan and you support them, but you are not the person to evaluate or judge them, because it's actually not helpful. It's not going to increase your motivation when you're in the presence of someone who judges you. But having a cheerleader, there was really interesting research in education, if I might digress for a second, showing that people who do well in college are people that feel that their parents are rooting for them. Okay, they got supporting them even more so than whether your parents are successful themselves. It matters that they want you to be successful. Okay, so it's a fine line, but it's not about judging you. It's about being your cheerleaders.
Yeah, I've noticed that with my children. I have. So, is there, don't know the answer, is there courses that people can take to get better at reframing? Is there stuff out there that they can online or whatever so they can improve that reframing process?
This is, this is such an important and difficult question. There is a ton, but I'm concerned that with when it comes to motivation and teaching people motivation, there is also so much false information out there. Okay, it's really interesting for me now with AI. Okay, because AI can give you really good answers for many questions, and when it comes to motivation advice, oh boy, Sometimes it gets it just right. Believe me, I play with this all the time. As someone who studies this, sometimes you're like, no, like, why would you say this to people? It's just not right. So I'm afraid that there are many books, and I'm happy to make a list. You have your guests. You clearly choose people who you believe do trustworthy research, but there is also a lot on TikTok, and sorry, that's not great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was great having you on. It was fantastic. It was unexpected too. I knew I wanted to talk to you about goal setting, and I knew I wanted to talk to you about motivation and the decision making, things like that. But this change the circumstance, change how you think about the circumstance was really cool. That was very compelling.
Thank you very much. This is why I like to just have a conversation, okay? Just an intellectual conversation about our favorite topic, and then we get to places that are interesting to be. I don't want to end this on like the negative point of like there is a lot of nonsense out there. There is good knowledge, okay? There are good books, there are good podcasts. There is a lot of correct information. There is so much going on in the science. It's just that you need to know where to look, and you need
it's the same in our business too. There's lots of information out there, and some of it makes no sense, but some of it is really, really good.
Exactly. So the good information is out there. You just need to be more willing to check the source and whether this is
how can individuals? Your book is out there. Is there other ways that people can connect with you?
Yes. So we mentioned Get It Done. There is also my website, ayeletfishbach.com. If you are interested in research on motivation, I try to feature some of it on my website. Just when you look for motivation advice, see that it's grounded in that data. Same, by the way, for any for advice on persuasion, for advice on what to eat. See that those data behind and you are safe to use it.
That's fantastic. Well, again, Ayelet, it was great having you on.
Thank you very much. And, please share the episode when it's ready.
Absolutely will. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
As we wrap up, I'd like you to remember what Ayelet mentioned earlier. It's so important and game-changing. In any situation, you really only have two options. Change the situation or change how you think about it. For example, remember there isn't a scenario in the universe where you make 20 outreach phone calls and you get 20 yeses. If you want a yes, you have to work your way through all the no's. There will never be guarantees, but what you can control is how you're thinking about it. Personally, my favorite point Ayelet makes is how we think about our effort. It's about framing effort as progress, and most importantly, framing setbacks as proof we're doing the work, not reasons to quit. Yes, it's a small change in thinking, but when it comes to staying motivated and making progress towards your goals, it can make all the difference. Lastly, remember your brain is powerful, but are you really using it? Or is it just stuck in neutral? That's our episode for today. If you found the series valuable, we'd love for you to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's where you're listening. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.